Hi, my name is Julie Cohen, and Rachel asked that I do this week's short piece for the liturgy on what I find sustenance and comfort from in the Bible. As I started looking at this, I realized that oddly enough, what gives me the most comfort in the Bible is a list of names. And that's the list of names that appears in the first chapter of Matthew, verses 1 through 16. Ordinarily, I wouldn't get a whole lot of comfort from a genealogy if it was filled with people that God had rewarded for their righteous and upright lives, whose choices were always correct and they always glorified God and did the right thing in the eyes of society and God as well. But that's not what you find in chapters 1 through 16 of Matthew 1. Instead, it is a story of some of the most bizarre choices that God could have made when he was deciding what lineage Jesus would spring from. While there are two genealogies, one in Luke chapter 3 and then this one, only Matthew has women present, which in and of itself would have been an outrageous choice for him to make for his listeners. But these are not the usual women who are extolled in the Jewish faith, like Rachel or Miriam. These are women who have some pretty sketchy stories, whose tales of imperfection and taking things into their own hands were nonetheless given the unimaginable gift of being in a list of the people who gave rise to the only perfect human to walk the earth. Now, I am female, and I am a mother. Yesterday was Mother's Day, and I see everything through those lenses. Not through it being Mother's Day, but through being a female and a mom and a wife. For people in my demographic, females in my demographic, we were lucky enough to be able to train for and follow careers. But with that was the expectation that we would also do the things that our mothers and grandmothers had done as well. So we're supposed to excel at our careers, have an immaculate home, well-adjusted, well-behaved children, happy husbands, and provide for our elderly parents so that they can age in place if that's what they choose. Those pressures, whether they're societally imposed, individually internalized, real or perceived, sometimes can be overwhelming. And if God expected perfection from me, I think that I would not be able to get out of bed in the morning. This list in the first chapter of Matthew shows that's not what he expects from me. Of the 5 women, Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, Bathsheba, and Mary, we have one who portrayed a lady of the evening, one who is described as a lady of the evening, one who was lured into an adulterous relationship, one who was an unwed teen mother, and one who threw herself at an older man in the all-boys club of the threshing room floor. Tamar, the one who portrayed the lady of the evening, is one of the most bizarre stories in the entire Old Testament, at least in my perspective. Her desire to force Judah, also a very weird choice for the lineage of Jesus, her desire to force Judah to do what God had demanded that the Israelites do, earned her a place through her own cunning and intelligence in that line of Jesus's forebears. Ruth, which is my very favorite story in all the Bible, tells a story of someone whose love for an Israelite mother, her own mother-in-law, led her to put her own personal safety and well-being at risk to provide for her small family. She too was rewarded by being part of this impressive line. Most of you will know the story of Rahab, the woman who lived in Jericho, whose actions saved not only the 2 spies, but also her entire family. And she was rewarded. Bathsheba, all of you will know that story as well, And while she was one of many wives, it was her son who was part of Jesus' lineage. The last in the list kind of breaks the mold because those four are, or most likely were, foreigners. Mary, on the other hand, was a good Jewish girl, but as I said before, she was an unwed preteen mother who knew that if Joseph didn't believe the dream that the angel sent to him, that she could be killed for doing what God asked. And yet, despite these sacrifices, she went through with this pregnancy, gave birth to Jesus, and then endured some of the rudest behavior from her child recorded in the Bible. Now, yeah, he's the savior of the world, but if one of my kids spoke to me the way that Jesus spoke to Mary, I would have pulled them aside and said, hey, listen, buddy, not only was I in labor with you in a barn, but you could have had me killed, so you better treat me with a little respect. But Mary doesn't do that. So from a societal standpoint, we might be standing back going, wow, that kid is so rude to his mom. But Mary had the big picture. She knew who Jesus was, and she knew that what God needed from her wasn't for her to be a perfect mother in the eyes of society, but to be the perfect mother to Jesus. When we get ready to take communion, Brian tells us that all are welcome, even if we don't think we're good enough or pure enough or Christian enough. Well, I know I'm none of those things. And I'm thankful for a list at the start of Matthew that makes it clear that it's not just Brian saying those things, but God. I'm thankful for a God who embraces imperfections, and I hope that you have a wonderful week.